Good morning and welcome to our morning session where we review our research highlights and progress and initiatives that are underway. I'd like to begin the session by inviting Dennis Lowe and Meha Sham to tell us a little bit about the research background of activities at CUHK. Dennis, please.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. After spending a day engaging in high-level discussions yesterday about the issues universities face, it is refreshing to return to our roots by focusing on research, particularly those conducted collectively by the WUN members. I was thrilled to see the diverse range of projects that our researchers are undertaking, spanning the fields from humanities and social science to health and technology. I look forward to learning more about these various projects, and I'm sure the data presented will inspire new ideas and directions for collaborations. I understand that many of you are visiting Chinese University of Hong Kong for the first time, so I'd like to take a very quick moment to introduce the university to you. So we are ranked among the top 10 in Asia and top 50 in the world. CUHK is recognized not only for its academic excellence, but also for our groundbreaking research. From AI technology to medical innovations, our university embodies the spirit of advancing knowledge to benefit humankind. And we take pride in being one of the most innovative universities in the city and the region, and supporting the evolution of the city into a diversified, knowledge-based economy, and propelling the innovation technology ecosystem in Hong Kong and beyond. So I'm pleased now to introduce our Vice Chancellor in Research, Professor Meha Sham, who is going to give you a presentation on research at CUHK. So Meha, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Meha. So we'll now move to reviews of progress on several research projects that WUN has supported, some that began a few years ago, and we want to see how they've developed. Some new ones that were launched just last year, and some prospective ones that we think open significant opportunities for WUN in the future. And the first one that I'd like to introduce is on control of mercury toxicity by subtropical and tropical mangrove ecosystems. This is work undertaken by Martin Choi from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And this work is, well, as he'll explain, very much focused on removing toxic agents from the environment. Martin is an associate professor from the School of Life Sciences at the CUHK and is an environmental scientist focusing on diverse chemical toxicants. He's a particular interest in heavy metals, mercury, and which is, of course, a global priority with widespread pollution concerns. Martin.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Peter, for the nice introductions. And good morning, Professor Lowe, Professor Sham, and all distinguished guests and WUN delegates. So I'm so honored to be standing here today to share with you some quick highlights of my research supported by the WUN Research Development Fund in 2022. So as Peter mentioned, the topic is about mercury. Okay, so mercury is a global pollutant. And this talk is a little bit more about the opposite side of that. Okay, so it's about how these ecosystems actually control the mercury toxicities. Although we have the input, but the natural ecosystems also play a very important role that not many people actually recognize. So having this great opportunity, and I joined CUHK in 2021, and this is actually my very first external grant. I call it as external grant I obtained it when I started in Hong Kong. So therefore, I'm very grateful to this opportunity. And I don't work on this project alone. I have a team of my students, and also I have a lot of collaborators, both inside and outside the WUN network. So therefore, the sky is the limit, right? So we can do a lot of lawful studies with this WUN network. So I hope you can bear with me about a little bit of the mercury science here. So mercury is a very special, unique element. As a mercury scientist, I always say that. The liquid name is quicksilver. As you can see, that is a silvery liquid even at normal conditions. So we've used mercury for a very long time. Many applications, dental fillings in our mouth, gold mining to collect the jewelry, gold for the jewelry, batteries, fluorescence lights, etc. So as you can think about we increased the mercury emissions all over the world in the last about 1 to 2 centuries. So first from the North American gold rushes, and then later on is the power generations. We burn a lot of coal. Coal contains a lot of mercury. And the mercury emissions all over the world is very uneven. So as you can see, East Asia. So East Asia, where Hong Kong is located at, is one of the hotspots of mercury emissions. So therefore, I feel like there's a really urgent need to carefully assess how the mercury pollution problems is going on. So I hope this cartoon can tell you a little bit about the mercury science is fun, but also a little bit complicated as well. So imagine there's a coal power plant somewhere remote. It emits mercury gas. Yes, mercury exists as a gas form. And mercury can rain down the land. So like all the rainwater contains some mercury. But this is only a minor pathway, as we found recently. The majority of mercury actually can end up on the land by getting into the trees, into the plants. That's the majority pathway. Once in the plant, later on in the soil, for some reasons, some of the bacteria, they transform this mercury to methylmercury, MEHG. And MEHG is a neurotoxicant, is a highly toxic compound all over the world. So then a little bit of that MEHG can get into the freshwater systems, for example. It would get into the aquatic food webs, getting into the animals by many, many times. For example, getting into the algae by 10,000 times, 100,000 times. And then when it once arrives in the fish, it's talking about 1 million to 10 million times higher than in the surrounding water. So therefore, the fish suck up all the mercury from the surrounding waters. So that illustrates eating fish is not good sometimes. So, so we are all facing a worldwide problems of seafood consumption, right? So eating more fish may be harmful, right? But we can balance on that. So one way to look at this problem is we can choose what fish we can eat, right? So there are a range of mercury in the fish, from the lowest to the highest, as you can see from this diagram. So personally, I picked the lowest one. So salmon is the lowest one, very tasty, not expensive. It has around 35 parts per billion. Parts per billion are very low levels, but that's enough. I mean, that's the levels that would cause some concerns already. So then if you pick tuna, let's say in a sushi restaurant, tuna has around 6 times of that in salmon. And then some places may sell swordfish, okay? Swordfish is another 5 times of that tuna. So if you eat, swordfish has about 30 times of that in salmon. So you can choose, right? So we have the options what to eat. And then of course, for normal adults, for many of us, it shouldn't be a problem, but that may be a problem for children during their development, and also problems for pregnant women. The mercury is not the problem for the ladies itself, it's the problem for the fetus, because through the maternal blood getting into the baby, into the fetus, the mercury can be transferred and even double the amount into the fetus. So therefore, having said that, so many bad things about mercury, so why I have to do research about mangroves? So as we know, mangrove ecosystems, especially if you live in tropical and subtropical areas, you've seen them all the time. So it provides many ecosystem services as outlined here. And most of the mangroves in the world are concentrated along the equator and along the mostly in tropical and subtropical areas. And then why I have to bother to deal with mercury, the dark side of the mangroves? So looking at the soil, the sediments is very dense and almost inside has low oxygen. We measure that, okay, only in the top 1 to 3 millimeter has tiny bit of oxygen. Underneath is completely anoxic, meaning that oxygen is completely gone. So then the problem is, would that harbor a lot of bacteria? They are specializing in making the mercury toxic. So to do this research, okay, so with the WUN Research Fund support, so my team and I assess the risk of mercury first step in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a very small city, but it has many beautiful coastlines and many wetlands and mangroves. So one of the hotspots of these mangroves wetlands is in the northwestern part of Hong Kong. So it's called the Deep Bay or Shenzhen Bay, so bordering with Shenzhen of mainland China. So our main site is where we landed Maple Nature Reserves managed by WWF. And my students, okay, they work really hard, okay, so, and they collect a lot of these sediment cores, okay, to assess the mercury problems, and also they want to assess if there's any risk of the shorebirds they feed on these wetlands and mangroves. So outside Hong Kong, we attempt really hard to get some samples as well. So one site we successfully obtained it through the WUN fund is in Vietnam. So we hope to expand that further in the futures. So a little bit of science here. I hope you can bear with me. So looking at the sediment core on the left, the top is the surface, the bottom is deeper sediment layer. So here is approximately 20 centimeters deep. When we brought the sediment core back to the lab, so we slice them every 1 or 2 centimeters. And then each layer, we analyze the mercury carefully. So that's a lot of work involving hundreds of these sediment cores. And then on the right, we have the mercury. And on the middle is the mercury, and the right side is the toxic methylmercury. As you can see the scale bar, there's very little methylmercury overall. That's the good thing. But there's a lot of mercury. So this is a reminder about the site locations in Hong Kong. So looking at the main site on Maple and Futan in Shenzhen, so you can see that the mercury amount is quite high, it's quite elevated. But for all other Hong Kong sites, all other colorful symbols, legends, they show pretty low levels, okay? So they're not very high. So therefore, we can conclude that there should be some local wastewater carrying high mercury and contaminated maple mangrove systems. Then looking at the wetlands site is also pretty consistent with those of Hong Kong, so shouldn't be a big problem. But then looking at the right side, the methylmercury, that's the one we are concerned. That's the neurotoxicants. So looking at Maple and Futan, they are not very high in methylmercury, even very high mercury, not very tiny bit of methylmercury only. So therefore, the bacteria, for some reasons, do not transform the mercury to be toxic. But looking at other sites, you can see that they are variable. But some sites, the pink one, I hope you can show up here. The pink site is in southern Hong Kong Island. It has very tiny bit of mercury, but it has a very high methylmercury. So that what it means is that ecosystems, not human, okay, actually controls how these metal become toxic or not. Okay. So then the site in Vietnam is also a little bit higher than Maple in Hong Kong. So therefore, we cannot just predict based on how many people live nearby, the population density, so on and so forth. There are lots of, the Mother Nature has a lot of things to do as well. And then moving on, looking at the shorebirds. So we enjoy bird watching, right? So at the same time, they are all at risk all over the world, including those in Hong Kong. So shorebirds in Hong Kong basically fly in this flyway, East Asian Australian flyway. They come to Hong Kong in the winter, overstay here for a winter, and then leave in springtime back to their original birthplaces. So then my student captured their feathers, shorebird feathers, many of them. So far analyzed around more than 90 of them, and then found very high levels of mercury in them, in most of them. As you can remember, these are at least 10 to 20 times higher than those we find in the sediments in Maple. So what does it mean? So based on the literature, anything, any feathers in the highlighted boxes, okay, are under high risk of reproductive impact. So roughly around 20% of these shorebirds are under the risk. And these are two species we think they are under high risk in this assessment. So what we've done for a few years, a lot of work, a lot of time spent, still scratching the surface only. There's still many unknowns we definitely have to follow up. Just a quick one here, why there's a methylmercury and how methylmercury is formed. So we will use more like a genomic approach to look at these problems, what kind of bacteria are doing the job, what kind of bacteria they don't do the job. And then how and why these shorebirds can take up so much mercury. So my group is using the mercury isotopic fingerprint, a little bit complicated here, but could track, oh, the bird is picking up the mercury from Hong Kong, but not from elsewhere, right? So therefore, this could help. And also we will look at the blood biochemistries to assess their health status. So we finished the science part. Okay? So, and then I will tell you a little bit about the accomplishments with this WUN grant. That's so important to me to start my career back in Hong Kong. So this grant allowed me to do a lot of networking, both local in Hong Kong, regional, Asia, and international. So allow us to do in-person meetings, the travel funds, and also virtual meetings as well. I think in-person meeting would help a lot, as you can feel today sitting here in Hong Kong, right? Rather than looking through the screens. Allow us to do a lot of samplings outside Hong Kong or elsewhere, and also do some valuable analysis. And our work has been made known to the public based on this grant. For example, a prestigious private foundation in Hong Kong, Croce Foundation, report our stories in Maple, Mercury, recently. And also we've done a lot of use social media, Facebook, Instagram, to teach our young kids about wetland conservations. And you can see we use Chinese languages, so in order to engage them more fully. And of course, personally, I do a lot of STEM seminars at middle and local high schools as well. So as a researcher, the outputs are very important, right? We have to be very quantitative. So far, we've made 7 presentations in international conferences and published 2 peer-reviewed papers based on this research, and then more papers are upcoming. Nothing would be more satisfying than teaching our students and seeing them successful. So far, 1 master's student graduated and 2 doctoral students are under training. And you can see some of these pictures, graduation and attending international conferences. Last but not the least, this grant is only the seed grant, I consider it, but it helped me a lot and I capitalized on this opportunity. So following this small, although relatively small seed grant, I did secure 3 additional grants for me to ask a lot of different novel questions about mercury in mangrove ecosystems in Hong Kong and elsewhere around the world. So mercury is a problem, but not just in mangrove ecosystems. My team and I have done a lot of work in freshwater habitats all over the world. And recently, we have done a lot of work in forests and grasslands up high in the mountains. Actually, they have more methylmercury than the mangrove ecosystem. No one has talked about. And then I work with a lot of CUHK colleagues, excellent in medical sciences, to look at how mercury actually affect the reproductive health in a really lawful way. So we found how to do it now. And then finally, as Professor Sher mentioned, I'm fortunate to be one of the team members to visit Antarctica recently, not just to look at the climate change problem, but also deal with the mercury cycling problem on the land of the Antarctica. So far, we've analyzed some of these samples back in Hong Kong. It's really surprising, actually not in a good way, because they have a lot of mercury, a lot of methylmercury as well. So I hope I have another chance in the future to report some of these exciting findings. So here, I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Any idea how this mercury travels to Antarctica?
Yeah, thank you very much. As I mentioned earlier, so mercury is a liquid metal. So all the materials, all these metals can vaporize. So that's what we call physicists call vapor pressures. Mercury has a very high, the highest vapor pressures among all the metals. So therefore, mercury exists in a gas, exists in this room. This room has 10 times more mercury than outside. That's what we know. And mercury transport from other continents all the way to Antarctica for millions of years. So all the ice cores in Antarctica drilled by other, I think, British scientists in the past, they found that they contains, not very high levels, but they contains mercury. So therefore, mercury has long been residing in Antarctica already. Thank you.
So while the mercury level is unsatisfactory, but do you have any measure of the actual health impact? So how many people per year, let's say in Hong Kong, is suffering from mercury-related diseases?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question, Professor Liu. So the most comprehensive assessment should be coming from the United States Environmental Protection Agencies. They have done I think, the most meticulous calculations on how many, I don't have the numbers right in my head now, but they do have the calculations on how many meals of the fish people consume per week, so, and then translate to how much mercury they would take up per, say, an adult, for example, 75 kilograms. I think they have done those calculations very meticulously. But for average person, right, so they don't have the ideas about how the concentration of mercury and their body weight, they don't do those maths, right? So therefore, they would recommend, for example, 3 meals of fish per week for normal adults, and maybe 1 meal of fish for sensitive population, so on and so forth. And then in terms of the amounts, that's what I show you, for example, the salmon, tuna, and swordfish. So about 300 nanogram per 300 ppb is the guideline. So it's the threshold. So anything above that would be the threshold. So therefore, the tuna I show you has about 200 ppb, so it's slightly below the limit. Then the swordfish is about three times exceeding the limits already. I hope I answered your question.
Martin, very interesting work.
Thank you.
Why would swordfish pick up so much more mercury compared to salmon? Is that because the swordfish like to eat a particular type of fish that has more mercury?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
So we have to answer your question, we have to understand the food web, the ecology, the food chain. Right? So fish we catch them in the open oceans, not in the coast, right? So they are living in a much longer food chain. So our ocean is the biggest ecosystem on the earth, right? So we don't have any doubt on that. So the longer the food chain, the mercury would increase in its concentrations. So therefore, the swordfish should be sitting at the top of the food chain of the oceans. So therefore, it contains the highest levels. And then if we human, we eat the swordfish, we are on the higher levels of the swordfish, and our mercury will be even higher than that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Martin. A very interesting talk.
Thank you.
So, for example, in the past 20 years, we observed a few different trends. One is we are reducing the pollution levels from coal-fired power plants. So I guess that will have some impacts on mercury emissions. And also we're having this energy transition away from coal, so towards renewables. That can also potentially reduce our mercury emissions. But as you said, that it's actually ecosystem that is converting the mercury to the more toxic part of mercury.
Yes.
So which one is more correct? For example, so did what we have done in the past 20 years on coal-fired power stations and energy transition, will that have any impact on how much mercury pollution we will see in the future, or they are not related at all?
Yeah, thank you very much for your excellent scientific questions. It's still under a lot of debate over the mercury science community. So whether we should cut down the emissions, because even we cut down the emissions, actually my personal unprofessional prediction is probably we cannot solve the problems, okay? Because as I show here and elsewhere, the ecosystem itself, they have their own unknown mechanisms to control all these transformations. It's more complicated than just cutting down we don't burn the coal. For example, if we don't burn the coal, actually, latest data show that the natural gas, if we burn the natural gas for power generation, natural gas has more mercury than the coal. So therefore, we won't solve the problem easily. So therefore, we will do more on the mercury capturing before these toxic mercury could be released. But then the other question is how our natural ecosystem, our mother nature, right, is working, right? So mother nature is very complicated. So we have to work really hard to understand its entire mechanisms. Thank you.
Martin, lastly, as you discussed the concept of bioaccumulation, biomagnification
Yes.
Through the trophic levels, but there is also a belief that the biomagnification really happens faster in the tropics than the temperate. Any scientific evidence to that?
Yeah, thank you very much. Your question is about whether the mercury biomagnification increase in the food chain is more pronounced in tropical areas. So I think our latest research, not done by myself, but done by my colleagues in overseas, so shows the opposite actually. So for tropical regions, because the temperature is higher, all the invertebrate, a lot of animals, they grow faster actually. So therefore, when they grow faster, the amount of mercury in these animals, okay, so on a mass basis, actually is being diluted. So that's good news for people living in tropical areas, right? Actually, the amount of mercury is lower. That's what we've observed. And to be honest, in mangrove ecosystem, a lot of fish, they contain very low levels of mercury in the tropical systems. That's give us another surprise. So that's why personally I love studying mercury for all my career, because we always find unexpected every time we do a lot of work. Thank you so much.
Our next project is also one that was funded a couple of years ago, and we'll have a video updating us on progress. This is on green hydrogen production from regional resources in low and middle income countries. And it's from Cynthia Kuzin Okoshigawa, who is at the University of Leeds. She's an academic research fellow and discovery fellow at the university, and her special interest is in adapting renewable energy technologies to local resources and energy needs. So we'll have a brief video, but no questions afterwards.
Good morning, everyone. I am Cynthia Kusino-Koroshe-Kwaga, the Senior Research Fellow at the School of Civil Engineering, University of Leeds, UK, and I'm the Principal Investigator for the project on green hydrogen production from regional resources in low and middle income countries. Now, the aim of this project was to explore opportunities to recover green hydrogen from organic waste resources in low and middle income countries. We target case studies in Uganda and Brazil. Now, with the global drive for green hydrogen being the fuel of the future, it is important that we design technologies that are suited to local resources and resource flow to ensure adaptability with these technologies. And this will help us to avoid the traditional one-size-fits-all approach to technology entry from the global north to the global south. So with this project, we set out first exploring this within 3 work packages. First of all, we wanted to understand what organic waste resources are available locally in different regions, and also understand their distribution and availability from one point to the other. So with this study, we explored primary data collection in Uganda, scoping waste flows across different settings, from major markets to waste dumping sites and other point sources in the country. And this data we used to compare with existing secondary data for UK and Brazil. Now, that information was particularly important because it helps us to understand first the resource availability, but also the characteristics of the waste within those regions that would inform the different technological entry for green hydrogen production across different countries. Now, to further explore that, we went on to design experimental studies to investigate biohydrogen production or recovery from different waste streams. And so in doing this, we designed methodologies, trained undergraduate students, as well as research organizations and non-research organizations as well, to explore experimental studies on green hydrogen recovery. Following on from that, we also engage with stakeholder communities that are key players in waste management and energy production and distribution in Uganda. Engage with policymakers like the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, engage with universities, Makerere University and other universities across Uganda, industry partners in renewable energy generation and distribution, as well as local leaders, market settings, and waste management settings. And this was fundamental to enabling resource flow across different work packages in the project. Now, the project has numerous impacts, one of which is that we've been able to generate primary data from Uganda, and this has enabled us to design a comparative study between UK, Brazil, and Uganda, profiling different waste distribution across these regions. And this has enabled us to provide evidence that we are now using to support two manuscript development that are near submission in the next few weeks. But in addition to that, we have also been able to generate data that has supported larger grant proposals. So essentially, we've been able to increase our grant portfolio stemming from the Green Hydrogen Project. The first of which was the Research England grant that allowed us to procure a state-of-the-art automatic hydrogen and methane potential testing system, and was transferred to Makerere University. And we've also procured some handheld hydrogen and biogas analyzers, increasing our capacity for the research in that region. So essentially, our partners, Makerere University, have now become a center for training in green energy and other bioenergy production systems in Uganda and across the East African region. Following on to that, we also secured grants from the Innovate UK. And through this grant, we piloted a technology to supply cooling services to rural dairy farmers in the sector. And this also was using organic waste coming from cow dung. From these projects, we have now improved access to research facilities especially through the facility at Makerere University. We are providing training. We've been able to provide over 6 in-person trainings, as well as online trainings to both the research organizations in the setting and non-research organizations, talking of industry partners as well. But essentially, we have been able to support over 6 undergraduate projects since the Green Hydrogen Project till date, and an MSc project coming from that. But besides just the projects, is the quality of the data, the quality of the projects coming from those establishments that are of high importance. Because we're not getting data that are comparable with literature data in that space. And that gives some robustness and scale to the projects that are coming from the work we're doing in Uganda. And leading on to that, this has helped to improve all the researchers' profiles of both the students engaged in the project as well as the staff members in the project. So if naming a few of the highlights, 2 of our pioneer students who were directly involved in the Green Hydrogen Project, went on to win regional competitions by the Royal Academy of Engineering UK for the Green Hydrogen Project, which was directly linked to the WUN-funded Green Hydrogen projects. Also, their award was actually featured at the University of Leeds Global blog post that was used to commemorate the World Zero Waste Day in March 2025. Now, our project was actually also featured at the University of Leeds African Week celebration in 2024. And this was one of the few projects highlighting the impact of the University of Leeds' contribution to scaling, to increasing global capacity and research. In addition to that, from that event, I went on to receive a letter of commendation from the University of Leeds' interim VC at the time in 2024. So this is just to mention a few of the highlights to the researchers' profiles that the Green Hydrogen Project has enabled and has helped us to scale till date. And last but not the least, they have been able to extend our network. So with the evidence generated through the project, it has enabled discussion forums to increase collaborations. So in Uganda, for example, we've started to increase collaborations with universities in Uganda, but more importantly, also increasing collaborations across the East African region and taking advantage of the facility now available at Makerere University as a training hub for other universities in the region is allowing us to co-create research ideas in advancing research and innovation along the green hydrogen line. Also, we've also extended collaborations with external partners in Nigeria, India, Peru, and Mexico that we're now developing, co-creating a manuscript, leveraging evidence from our pilot study, from the study, the collaborative study between UK, Brazil, and Uganda, and extending that to provide a global overview of different regional contexts, waste distribution and waste flows that should enable locally informed technology designed to suit local energy needs and not just the copy and paste approach for technology transfer. And so this project wouldn't have been successful without the collaborative effort of all of the partners. And so acknowledging the partners from the UK, University of Leeds and the University of York, the partners from Uganda, Makerere University, and our independent industrial partner, Green Heat Uganda, and the partners from Brazil, the Federal University of Minas Gerais. And thanks to the WUN Research Development Fund for enabling this research that has become a template and grounds to scale new projects coming through. And that'll be all from me. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Cynthia. Our third project we'll hear about this morning is a brief update on one that has been going on for several years now. This is from Paul Revel at the University of York, and he'll be describing the outcome of a major project on informing health resource allocation decisions, models of interdisciplinary research emphasizing local engagement and policy impact. This is a major partnership between the Global North and the Global South. And Paul will be describing what they've done that has led to major funding just being received from the EU, a 1.5 million grant from the EU Africa Research Infrastructure Fund for a project that's focused directly on his core interests, which are economic analysis to inform health resource allocation. So a brief video from Paul.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for the invitation to speak to the WUN AGM. So I'm going to tell you about the TANSI programme of research and policy impact activities, which is led out of the University of York and involves a number of WUN partners, especially Makerere University, the University of Ghana, the University of Pretoria, and also former WUN partners, the University of Bergen and the University of Nairobi. TANSI programme of activities is focused on using the tools of health economics and other disciplines to inform healthcare resource allocation, particularly in East and West Africa. We've worked deeply with the Ministries of Health in Malawi and Uganda, for instance, on work which informs the priority list of interventions for government funding, how government budgets are allocated across districts, and how investments in public health are made. The TANSI programme has run since 2017, and we began to engage with the WUN Secretariat in around 2019. Initially, the Secretariat provided seed funding to help advance and expand the programme of activities. Our initial work was disrupted by the COVID epidemic, but we thank the Secretariat for the flexibility during this time. And in 2023, we used the funding available from WUN to convene a series of partners in Norway, in Bergen, to prepare for an application to European Commission for funding that would support research coordination and impact activities. This funding was ultimately successful, and in January this year, a partnership of the universities of York, Bergen, Ghana, Pretoria, Makerere, and 6 other leading universities in West and East Africa began their collaboration to coordinate on teaching materials and the development of teaching materials, especially for master's programs, and to enhance partnership and collaboration with national ministries of health and regional health authorities. Since this award was granted, it has also acted as a platform which has attracted other funders, further enabling us to expand the programme and the potential for beneficial impact activities. We've enjoyed and benefited from partnership with WUN, and we appreciate the support from the Secretariat. And finally, I would like to ask all members if universities have interest in health economics and would like to partner and coordinate with us, please do be in touch. We're also always willing and looking to expand our activities. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Paul. Our final discussion before the break is one that will be led by Charlie Jeffries from the University of York. And Charlie will be giving us an update on a major project that results from a partnership between York and Mahidol University on valuing voices. This has been going on now for a year plus and is well underway. Charlie?
Thank you very much, Peter, and thanks for the opportunity to introduce this project. Yesterday, we were talking about the value of international networks, and I think this project is an example of that, about how an idea has grown through the links that the University of York and Mahidol have developed largely through RDF projects over the last years into something with a more strategic approach about research collaboration. It's not like the brilliant projects that we've heard about already this morning, which have a clear substantive focus. This is about research culture, which our funder, the Wellcome Trust, defines as a culture that fosters inclusive, equitable, open, engaged, and ethical research. Now, I suspect we could all sign up to such a vision of research, but there is a number of complexities below that. And we have a particular debate about research culture in the UK at the moment, which has 3 hypotheses. The first is that research shouldn't be seen as something which is just outcome driven, not just about publications, citations, prizes, but we should also care about how research is conducted. So that's hypothesis 1. Hypothesis 2 is that research quality and research impact will improve. In other words, those outcomes will be better if we embed these principles of inclusiveness, equity, openness, and so on in our research process. And then the third hypothesis, perhaps the trickiest one, is that you can measure this additionality. This is the really controversial bit in the UK, that then you can make it part of the key that allocates public funding for research. I'd like to return to those hypotheses at the end, because I think they give a nice connection to some of the debates we had yesterday about metrics. Okay, so there's a few words of context for this project. The project is essentially about challenging, understanding, and dismantling persistent hierarchies which pervade the research process. They're captured in these triangles. These might be hierarchies in the level of experience that researchers bring to a project. Projects often led by an experienced senior researcher in collaboration with less experienced researchers, hierarchies there. It may be around the relationships between roles, such as academics and professional services staff, technicians, research enablers, and so on, where hierarchies may well also exist. There may be a hierarchy of disciplinary boundaries. I was talking with a colleague from the University of Auckland earlier this morning about how New Zealand public funding for research is now marginalising the humanities and social sciences, STEM rules. And then finally, there may be other kinds of inequality which have a transnational dimension, where resources are distributed unequally and may embed different kinds of hierarchy. So that's the starting point. To address those hierarchies, the Valuing Voices project has three main strands of work. First is that it's funding small-scale projects across disciplinary boundaries to pilot interventions in equitable and responsible research practices. Second, it's working to create policies and systems that recognise and reward more inclusive practices, including through recruitment processes and reward and recognition processes. And then, and this is the main theme I'll be talking about today, it's developing an interactive online tool, a kind of dynamic interactive checklist that we hope will support the research community to design and deliver equitable and responsible research projects that place people and society at the forefront. Oh, sorry, lots of clicks here. So this is the timeline of the project so far. I'm not going to go into that in any detail, but focus a little bit more on the online tool, which has been co-developed with the research community and tested with over 100 academic and professional services staff at York and Mahidol through facilitated workshops over the lifespan of the project. And that groundwork has now been finished, and the first version of the hands-on tool is ready, and you'll all get a link to it so you can play with it later. Not least because the pilot version, the beta version, sorry, launches this week, and we will be heading towards a full launch in December this year, and we would like to get insights from anybody who fancies a little play with it. So I hope that will include all of you. So what is it? Oops. So the tool is based around 5 planning principles co-created between York and Mahidol that seek to improve the quality and outcomes of research. They are, as you can see here, engagement and impact, equity, diversity, strategic risk mapping, environmental sustainability, and reflection and learning. And using a results-based planning method, users are asked to map what success might look like in their project for each of those key principles. They're asked to identify the outputs, actions, and resources needed to make that vision happen. And that's all designed to equip researchers to produce stronger, deliverable plans that distribute responsibility ethically and align with the kind of priorities that many funders now expect to be reflected in the work that they fund. The website's going to offer summaries and support around each of these principles. I'm not going to go into those in great detail. I think colleagues will get a copy of this, won't they, Peter? Yeah. Everybody will get a copy of this, so you can look at those rather small font words in more detail later. The tool also offers a whole range of resources designed to allow researchers to engage with and reflect on those 5 key principles, carefully selected to make them as practical and useful as possible to help research teams translate ambitious objectives into achievable actions. And to help project teams articulate those actions in plans, the tool guides researchers through a whole list of questions, a sample of which are on this slide. So, why use the tool? Well, the answers are in those boxes on the slide here. That's what we hope. That's what our collaboration suggests that we will get from it. And our ultimate aim is that this becomes a widely used tool across research organizations internationally. We hope it will improve the success of funding applications. We hope it will expand the impact of research projects and help to dismantle those hierarchies in research. So please do try this out, or do get your researchers at your universities to try it out. Give feedback. We want to make this even better than the result of the collaboration between York and Mahidol so far. If you want to have a quick look at it now, you can log on to that website. As I finish, I see significantly ahead of time, Peter, so more time for reflection. I wanted to go back to those hypotheses, which I think open out this project into the kind of wider conversation that I think WUN is an especially good venue for. And that is the first one, that we shouldn't just worry about the what of research and the outputs that it produces, but also how we conduct research. Secondly, the hypothesis that if we do that well, then research will be better. The outputs and their impact will be better if we produce that more inclusive approach to research. And then the third one, picking up on some of the conversations yesterday, can you measure it? Can you measure research culture in a way that could be used to incentivize and reward research via public funders? So I'll leave you with those questions and finish there.
Thank you very much. I think this is really important that you're sharing this here. And I remember at one of our online meetings, I explained the COARA ambitions. You remember a few years ago when I was still chair of the steering board? I think they would be absolutely interested in learning about this tool and also using it in the wider academic community, because it fits perfectly in the COARA ambitions. Is that also an approach that you have shared with them, with the community, the COARA community, and with the steering group?
With the what community?
The COARA, the Coalition on Advancing the Reform of Research Assessment. It fits perfectly in that. And if York has not signed yet, this is about time then.
Well, I think I'm being challenged there, aren't I?
Applies to all universities here. It's a global manifesto.
Yeah, I will take that as a prompt to explore what our views are at the University of York on COARA. But I do think there are some really significant questions there about the question of whether you can measure the impact of a different kind of approach to research. I think we've probably sent that question off in the wrong direction in the UK. by immediately trying to connect it to how we allocate public funding for research. That makes it very controversial. Those who get lots of public funding are a bit worried about it, and have taken a rather defensive position. I think we've just moved too quickly into that kind of debate. But I shall try and engage our colleagues, and I'm sure our colleagues in Mahadol would agree with the COARA initiative to see how something like this may help to inform that debate.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the introduction. I think this is a very important, but at the same time also extremely ambitious projects to try to develop a platform to quantitatively assess or measure whatever criteria that you want to measure, but hoping to achieve the ultimate goal of changing the research culture. So I'm also wondering whether you have heard of the Hong Kong principles. It's a set of principles that was arising, coming out from a World Conference on Research Integrity. I'm one of the co-authors because the conference was held in Hong Kong. And the particular concept is very similar to what you're trying to talk about, essentially in the pathway of research, from conception of the idea, developing the project, executing the project, collecting data, assessing the results, disseminating the results in the entire pathway. At the moment, our research system reward the very, very end and the very successful end, because there are long process that are lots of engagement and activities that we all appreciate in our research ecosystem. So the Hong Kong principles essentially is talking about alerting institutions to be aware of and also cultivate and reward our researchers at all steps. Nevertheless, even though these Hong Kong principles have been published for a while, it is in PLOS biology, but it is always, the world is always separated into two groups, those who are aware and those who are not aware. The communication from within, those are aware, like probably you and me, we are probably talking among each other. But how to disseminate these important values from those who are aware to those that are not aware? I think your platform could do a lot. Nevertheless, my specific question is, from this questionnaire or this particular instrument that you are developing between only two universities that are that very, very, dissimilar, very, very different, how would you be able to come up with your ideal, you really wish to come up with something that could quantitatively measure or even just alert, particularly you highlight a particular topic, I think that probably if defined well is achievable. That is about the hierarchy, the hierarchy of different relationships. In particular, since you have Manho University, also some of our members in the ASEAN region, also here in Hong Kong, in Asia, the hierarchical issues about a senior colleague in the team and a junior colleague in the team in the accreditation of the research outcome, even in authorship ascription, the ingrained cultural differences are very, very deep. How could you use an instrument, an online survey, to help change this ultimate culture, which is long, which is built up through long time as well as multifaceted? So it's a big question, but maybe just to share your view. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those kinds of practices of hierarchy indeed differ from place to place, but they also differ from individual to individual. And I think the challenge that you've put about awareness is exactly the right one. This is a tool, you can use it and take insight from it in many different ways, but it is really to raise awareness of questions that some people may not be thinking about, or some academic cultures in some countries have thought about less than others might have done. So how do you promote that awareness? Well, I think when you've got a worldwide universities network, you have some possibilities for dissemination, which wouldn't exist on a national basis or on a bilateral one. And given that we've had the ASEAN network with us at this event, and we've also heard about the Pacific Rim universities through your own introduction earlier. We have networks through which we can publicize approaches like this, or indeed the principles that both you and Rihanna have raised. And it's quite striking that I didn't know instinctively what COARA was, so I need a bit more awareness as well. Yeah. So I really hope that those who are here today, but also Peter, those in the network who are not here today, all of those researchers who are represented in the RDF projects might be introduced to this and give us their sense of how useful it might be.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Excellent project and fascinating project. And by the way, we have signed COARA. I'm outing myself here, but I'm close to this lady. And but it shows that we all, where we are, addressing now an important issue. That's how we can move from quantity to quality. In the end, I think quality should count. Research quality, and your approach is a valuable addition to that. But we also seen from this discussion, it's still very fragmented. You know, the COARA and Hong Kong and Valuing Voices, and you know, as we always try to discuss within WUN. What could be the added value of the network? And I think one of the added value of the network is that we could probably get together in one group or another and think, how could we make a joint statement or address, we could write a white paper, publish it somewhere, in how we can address these issues and use several examples as best practice. So this is a suggestion. The second is a question, how can we help to move this along as in individual universities? And we certainly would be very interested, because we have all sorts of also groups that discussing this in a different context. How could we use it and maybe develop it further and help? So we would be very interested. But I think it would be an interesting approach for our network to really say, come together. We have a lot of expertise here. How can we bring this forward and make it more public? Because I think it's a very important issue.
Thank you very much, Martin. I'm attracted to the idea of a white paper or a statement that might emerge from this. But I'm also very aware that this is an evaluation framework or a reflection framework that two universities have come up with, and that may well bring lots of relevant perspectives to bear, which can create and improve a tool. Hasn't been easy, you know, working out what the principles are that we should focus on, and then how we could encourage the right kinds of reflection on them. I think what you're suggesting is to extend that co-creation process and the process of discussion of those principles into a much wider context. I'd be really keen to think that through, and I suspect you would as well. How we do so, I'm not going to hazard a guess now, but I take it as an invitation, Martin, and I really hope that WUN can be that framework for reflecting further around this starting point. This isn't meant to be an end point. This is not meant to tell the world, right now you have to do your work this way. It's meant to be a reflective process, which you know, doesn't just end when you publish an online tool. I wonder if you wanted to say a few words.
Yeah, normally I agree with some of the we can join some of the principle, but once we have implement the VV into some of the our criteria for the seed funding of Mahidol and York, it would be very easy to normalize some of the funding projects, social science, technology, and also medical science. Yeah. So everyone would try to change the PI and try to engage the community. The pure scientists, normally they care about some mathematical models or some of the deep side, but they cannot touch some of the humanity. But once we have the workshop in December in Bangkok, and then we say that mandatory that the people should attend some of the meeting to know how to use some of these criteria. They go back and then they try to switch some of the PI. And eventually they also touch the SDG. We can see mathematician or the people working on electronic and also wearable sensor try to touch SDG goal. Yeah. So I think that would be something good. And then I think we would be welcome and would like to study some of the existing platform.
Yes, hello. This is Anne Aerts from Maastricht University. Last year at the WUN conference in Cape Town, we discussed the Africa Charter for Transformative Research Relationship Collaborations. And it struck me how much parallels there are in that framework and in the Valuing Voices project. Actually, we tried even to connect. So there has been at some point a meeting, a virtual meeting to discuss this. It's just a suggestion. I think we should take this further. We should take also the African framework further. Probably we can walk on in parallel in this. And also we discussed in the Global Africa group of the WUN that it would be very nice to really bring into practice, try to bring into practice in 1 or 2 RDF projects the principles laid down in the Africa Charter, but that can also be, of course, the principles of the Valuing Voices. And again, there are a lot of similarities. Basically, the spirit is the same. So that's a suggestion.
Thank you for the suggestion. I put this timescale up because we are now heading into that process of refining the initial version of this tool, heading towards a final version. And it may well be that we can find ways of opening up that process, not simply by people experimenting with it, but contributing through the workshop that we're planning later in the year. I'm not sure what the logistics for that would be and how we'd fund it, but I'm sensing there's quite a bit of interest in this room in engaging as we move towards a sort of more public launch of this, and then perhaps into a space in which we might connect across these various initiatives. We've got Coara, we've got Hong Kong, we've got Africa Charter. There may be some more before we end this session, but I think there's an integrative possibility here, which a worldwide network is really, really well placed to perform.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Thanks, Charlie. So I think it's a fantastic project. I do think that the various approaches should probably follow and not get to be concentrated immediately. The reason why I'm saying that is the fact that there are already maybe negative perspectives because it's been seen as an assessment evaluation tool in certain areas. So you don't want to convert it too quickly, but try to keep it as broad to bring as many as possible into the positive thinking, rather than to reduce it to one and then you have to have a different approach to deal with the negativity.
Thanks. That's good advice, good tactical advice. And I say that in part because we are seeing a little bit of reaction in the UK to the idea of research culture. In the sense of, or in the same sense that we're seeing reactions in the US against DEI initiatives, there is a bit of a danger that it gets put in that kind of box and used wrongly by what we were calling yesterday bad actors. And again, in my conversation with a colleague from Auckland earlier, we were talking a little bit about how some of the challenges to public funding for research are also mobilizing around opposition to what people think is a challenge to equality by thinking about inclusion in new ways. I think we've got to be very careful we don't produce antibodies too early in the process.
Can I ask a small question, Charlie? What I inferred from what you said was that this is a provocation to self-reflection.
Yeah.
The tool doesn't provide you with feedback. There's no right answer to the question. Or is there?
No, I don't think anybody's saying there's a right answer to the question. And it's quite interesting to reflect on where the funding for this came from, because it's from the Wellcome Trust in the UK, which is a funder of health-related research. Nothing else. I mean, it extends across a little bit into other disciplinary areas. So this is an idea supported by a very wealthy foundation which wants to do health research better. I think we're extending that way beyond the health domain, and the Wellcome Trust were really happy for us to extend it beyond the health domain. But I suggest that means that the whole conversation is an open-ended one that doesn't have definitive answers, that it will be iterative and reflective, and whatever a tool might look like this year, with additional insights from a wider network, it could well look different next year, hopefully better through that additional engagement.
We're at exactly the right time for a break, so please join us outside for refreshments. The room is secure, so you can leave your belongings here during the break. We'll convene again at 11 o'clock. Good. Welcome back, everyone. Our next talk is from Sylvia Hutt, who's the professor in the Department of Geography and Resource Management and director of the Urban Studies program at CUHK. And her research focuses on urban planning, transport planning and policy, travel behavior, smart cities, and urban analytics. And Sylvia will be giving us an update on a project that began a few years ago and has taken off in a big way. Sylvia, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Peter, for the kind introduction. Today, I'm very honored to be here to have the opportunity to give some update about my project, which already completed a few years ago, about low carbon transport, individual well-being, and planetary health in the area of smart cities and new mobilities. So this is the slide about the project. So the project is funded about 2019, that is in the period of COVID. So during the project, my team and my collaborators didn't get to travel that much. But then we managed to organize 3 online workshops, and each workshop managed to attract more than 100 participants from over 20 countries and regions. So in this project, we have collaborators from University of Auckland, University of Leeds, and also previously with University of Bristol, that is the team members. So back in 2022, I was actually invited to give some background and output of this project in WUN AGM meeting, but that then is online. So today, I'm very glad to finally make it in person. So after the project, our groups continue to research about transport, but then we see smart cities a backdrop. So in smart cities, we have a lot of interesting transport modes. For example, we have a traditional transport mode such as bus, metro, walking, biking. But at the same time, we also can research about emerging transport modes, such as electric vehicle, autonomous vehicle, and even ride-hailing, etc. So yesterday, Professor Low asked me if I research about low-altitude economy. I have not started that yet, but that could be a potential. So even a few years ago in the class of smart cities, I started to teach my students how to operate a drone. So that is a lesson I learned myself because I actually crashed my drone a few years ago on a big tree. And since then, I did take some serious training and I got my license. So I'm very proud that I can teach my students how to operate a drone. So in the smart city, we also have a lot of data. So besides conventional data such as survey data, census data, we can manipulate a lot of new and emergent data such as mobile phone data, social media data, and GPS data, etc. So on the right-hand side, we can see our team utilize a set of electric vehicle charging data in Hong Kong. So in this map, we can see that a very clear temporal variation of the utilization of EV chargers. So especially a very clear difference between public and private chargers in Hong Kong. And besides electric private cars, our team also research about other electric mobility modes. So in this map, we show the GPS trajectory of the electric taxi in Shenzhen. So that's the city just across the border. And that's a city already fully electrified, the taxi fleet back in 2019. So with this kind of data, we can study the charging behavior of e-taxi and inform us how we can deploy, optimize this public charging infrastructure. And then in the past few years, I'm also expanding my editorial services. And then currently I'm on the editorial board of 9 journals. Those are the leading journals in transport and urban planning. So if I know many researchers from different parts of the world. So if you have any research team in your university interested in collaboration, please feel free to contact me. And besides, I also completed my first edited book. It's called The Handbook on Transport in Asia. It's a commission by Edward Elgar Publishing a few years ago. So it's kind of, I think, after I completed my WUN project, they contacted me. So I thank the WUN for the opportunity to expand my network so that the publisher kind of managed to find myself. So in this book, we have 4 different sessions, and then it also features quite a number of geographic areas in Asia, so in different parts of Asia. And then if you're interested in this book, please feel free to scan the QR code. So in this book, we have 28 chapters in total with a total of 67 contributors from different parts of Asia. So actually a lot of contributors from Europe and North America, Australia, etc. So a total about 50 universities and research institutes. And some of these researchers are collaborators from my WUN project, and some of them are from the current WUN member universities, such as University of Tsukuba. So in this book, we cover a wide range of transport modes and travel behavior across Asia. And then we also talk about planning and design interventions in the transport sector. And then from a planning and urban design perspective, we look into urban form development and financing constraints, etc. And last not but least, we also cover some areas of future design and future research. So all aim to make our transport system more just and equitable. So for example, in some chapters, we can learn about the walkability initiatives in Korea and also in the Philippines. So this can inform us how government policies, urban planning initiatives, and urban design ideas can transform our cities and neighborhoods to make them more walkable, healthier, and more sustainable. And then from some other chapters, we can link transport and the social and environmental impacts. For example, in this chapter, we can learn how Japan has been so successful in encouraging independent travel of children. That is not only because of the cultural reason, but also because the streets, the roads in Japan have been made very safe, so that children can feel safe to walk around or even lying down on the street, seeing the street as the space and the public space and even a playground, so building up their sense of community. So last not but least, our book is very fortunate to have received quite a number of endorsement from eminent scholars in the field of transport and urban planning. And they're from different parts of the world, including Australia, US, Canada, Belgium, and the UK. And then we also are very fortunate to feel the book have been promoted in various occasions and including in these occasions. So this all for the updates. Thank you again for WUN, for my colleagues in OAL for the hard work. And if you'd like to know more about our research team's project and also about the book, please feel free to email me or find me up on LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
So our next talk is a pre-recorded presentation from Mohammed Zandi at the University of Sheffield. Mo will be describing his work on empowering the manufacturing workforce for the future. He's Professor of Chemical Engineering at the School of Chemical, Materials and Biological Engineering at Sheffield, and currently he serves as a Deputy Faculty Director of Education, responsible for strategic leadership of academic programs and the engineering curriculum.
Hi, my name is Mo Zandi. I'm a professor here at the University of Sheffield. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to summarize our recent project funded by WUN on the ethical integration of AI in manufacturing. All the data are pointing that we are an AI positive world. Just looking at this graph is showing that 78% of organizations are using AI. Also, we have seen a significant surge of the usage of Gen AI as well. So every technology has got its own benefit, but some harm is also invented at the same time when the technology is being developed as well. And AI is not any exception to that as well. AI is bringing us lots of benefits, but also at the same time, it has got its own negativities, and that's really needs addressing. So AI is here, and we are using it every day. Possibly today, use AI to write something or to summarize, or even you use AI to get to the venue. So AI is diffusing into every single aspects of our life, the way we are working, the way we are interacting and communicating and living. So as AI, it goes and brings us lots of benefit, but however, we have to make sure there are ethical guardrails around the use of AI, and there are lots of risks, and we are already aware of those risks, things like a de-information or misinformation or discrimination because of the AI systems the way it has been trained. So it's very important as we develop AI, we also think about the ethics side of AI too. So how about the manufacturing? And we know that AI is being used in manufacturing, and there's more and more usage of AI in manufacturing. Do we have an established framework to fully and ethically integrate AI in manufacturing at the same time and making sure the workforce is not harmed or they are not being discriminated against? And the short answer is no, we don't have that universal framework. And that became the basis of this project. If you do a literature review, if you look at for example, the formal journal publications, for example, Elsevier or Science Direct or Scopus, and you enter the word AI or artificial intelligence or machine learning, around September 2024, when the project was running, you get about 1.2 million papers published in that area. And that shows that we all at this stage of the development, we are drilling AI. If you add a couple of other keywords into your search, like for example, ethical concern or job displacement or bias or discrimination or ethics, that goes from 1.2 million papers to just below 67,000 papers for all time, if you look at the number of the publications. And then if you add other keywords like a human or workforce, that goes even further to below 30K. And then when you start adding words manufacture or manufacturing to that, we get around 300 papers only published in that area. And if you exclude areas like healthcare, banking, and chemistry, and then looking at the areas that I'm coming from, for example, process manufacturing, you reach around just below 200 papers published in that area by September 24. Just that tell you how much attention is at the moment paying to the AI development itself, and they are not really thinking about those ethical aspects of AI and how it's going to impact the workforce as well. So we applied for the WUN. We joined the forces with the University of York in the UK and University of Auckland in New Zealand. We really wanted to bring all the experts to talk about the ethical issues and the concerns with the AI usage in manufacturing. We organized 2 workshops, one here in the Sheffield on 13th of June, that the picture that you can see on the left hand side, and then the other one was on 13th of November in Auckland. And we decided to take the workshop to the other side of the world to see and hear our colleagues, and then to listen to the professionals that often they don't get the opportunity to come to this side of the world and discuss about this topic. And to be honest, without the WUN, we couldn't achieve that. There are lots of fundings around the AI development, but not much around the ethics of AI as well. And we had a fantastic time, which I'm going to share some of the outcomes of those 2 workshops. So in the first workshop, really, we look at the concerns and challenges around the use of AI in manufacturing. One of the biggest concerns is just around the data and the quality of the data. There are not enough big data and sufficiently rich data to develop the models for AI. As you say, we really need to be at the stage of Industry 4.0, but there was lots of concern. We have got lots of legacy processes that are not even at Industry 3.0, and they are all patches of the data, so they don't have a kind of a cloud system that can collect all the data and analyze data. The other interesting concern which just came out of the workshop was a lack of understanding between the workforce and the business owners, what AI can do and what AI cannot do. Often the businesses think that AI is going to solve all the problems, which all at the same time the workforce have got lots of concerns about their jobs and what really AI achieve for them in terms of the efficiency. We have lots of comments around this famous phrase, because we have heard this a lot, that human with AI replacing human with AI. That talking about the re-skilling people in the organization. Otherwise, we will see a job displacement and replacement and moving manufacturing often to offshore, but there are less regulations around the use of AI in the businesses. And also re-scaling and upscaling the workforce requires a skilled trainers as well. So how are you going to train the trainer so they be able to upskill the workforce in the organizations as well? So our top tips are: first, you have to understand your problem. Do you need really AI to solve the problem? And you have to think about all those consequences and risk of the AI. Understanding quality of the data and the diversity and limitation of the data you have. You have to perform the ethical and safety assessments, evaluate your AI systems from the day one, not something that you do as a bolt-on at the last stage of the project. Start with the trial in the low-risk environments and deploy AI in the small control environments before deploying it to the whole organization. And then finally, treat AI like an intern. Supervise your AI system closely and get the continuous feedback, how it's going, and make sure the humans are within the decision-making process. So I would like to finish this talk by talking about addressing the big elephant in the room, and that is that the current AI debate doesn't address the need to review our education system. In my opinion, we are not talking about the ethics in our education system, and it should be integrated and embedded in our education system. At the day one, students should learn about it and be at the forefront of their mind at every single step. And finally, I would like to thank this opportunity and thank my fantastic colleagues at the WUN brought us together, colleagues from the University of York, Sheffield, and University of Auckland. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mo. Our next talk is live but virtual from Sumita Sulaladachi from Mahidol University. Sumita is a sociologist, a sociolinguist, I should say, at the Research Institute for Languages and Cultures of Asia at Mahidol. And she will be describing her project on indigeneity, language, culture, and the role of linguistic and cultural heritage in addressing indigenous inequalities.
Thank you, Peter, for your kind introduction. Good morning, everyone, esteemed colleagues and WUN partners. I'm Sumitra from the Research Institute for Languages and Cultures of Asia, Mahidol University. It is my honor to share the progress of our WUN-supported research project. And the title of our project is Reducing Indigenous Inequalities, Contextualizing Strategies and Policies for Achieving a Community Empowerment in Different Global Regions. This project addresses the long-standing and systemic marginalization of indigenous and ethnic minority communities, particularly through the lens of language, cultural heritage, and sustainable development. This initiative was conceived in response to the growing urgency to support marginalized communities facing cultural, linguistic, and economic challenges. First, the project seeks to empower indigenous communities through heritage revitalization, focusing on youth engagement and intergenerational transmission. Our work contributes to decolonization efforts, enabling communities to reclaim knowledge and redefine their own futures. And second, it is timely and globally relevant, aligned with the UN Decade of Indigenous Languages 2022 to 2032, and directly supporting SDG 4, quality education, and SDG 10, reduce inequalities. It recognizes that linguistic and cultural diversity are fundamental to sustainable and inclusive development. And third point, this project takes a comparative and collaborative approach, bringing together partners from both Eastern and Western contexts. Through ongoing knowledge exchange, we are not only designing revitalization strategies, but also sharing best practices and lessons learned across diverse social, political, and linguistic settings. So below are the some of the webinars that we hosted together. As for our key achievements and points of pride, thanks to the support from WUN and our institutional partners, we have accomplished several meaningful outcomes. So we have established a strong, active international research network, linking scholars, educators, and community members from Thailand, Japan, UK, and other countries. This network has allowed us to explore both commonalities and context-specific approaches to community empowerment. We have also elevated the voices of local communities whose insights and experiences are central to shaping our research design and outcomes. This includes perspectives from both elders and youth across indigenous and ethnic groups. We are working with a range of severely endangered and threatened languages, acknowledging the varying degrees of vitality and the need for tailored revitalization approaches. Our project has already yielded several academic outputs. We have presented our findings at an international conference, published in the proceedings, and are currently preparing a journal article for submission. We have also, in Thailand, we have also contributed a white paper to the Thai Senate's Soft Power Committee, proposing how language and cultural policy can strengthen Thailand's global presence through soft power. On the grant development front, we have completed one research proposal and are now working on a second, more ambitious proposal for a long-term international grant. We are also working on a handbook of Karen language describing biodiversity in Chiang Mai. And also, I will be traveling to University of Leeds to join an international conference there on the sustainable development. And I would also like to express my gratitude for the support from Mahidol University International Relations Division, which has enabled international researchers to come over to Thailand and do some field visits under its visiting scholar program. And below here are of the slide are some photos of our field visits in Thailand and Japan, featuring communities we are honored to work with. And WUN has been a critical enabler of this project, not only through funding, but through its convening power and global vision. WUN initiated the collaboration connecting Mahidol University with partner institutions across Asia, Europe, and Africa to collectively address issues of indigenous inequality and inclusion. Provided a platform for cross-disciplinary innovation, allowing researchers from various fields like linguistics, education, entrepreneurship, health science, and notably agriculture and biodiversity to work together in co-creating solutions grounded in community needs. Most importantly, WUN has strengthened long-term relationships and enhanced visibility locally, nationally, and internationally. These partnerships are continuing beyond the grant period, shaping new opportunities for research, capacity building, and policy influence. And you can see that here are some of the logos of representing our partnerships, from academic institutions on the left to national research bodies, and from local governments to grassroots organizations and cultural associations. So to conclude, our project goes beyond documentation or preservation. It is about revitalization with purpose, led by communities, informed by research, and supported through global collaboration. So on my behalf of my team, I would like to thank WUN, our university partners, and the local communities who have welcomed us into their worlds. We are committed to sustaining this work and deepening our impact in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sumitra. Our final talk this morning is a bit different. It's prospective rather than retrospective or discussing something in progress. And it stems from the discussion we had last year at our AGM between WUN and ARUA, the African Research Universities Alliance, on how we might develop partnerships with beneficial growth.
Thank you so much.
Several discussions that emerged from that led to the idea that one of the best opportunities for partnership was to engage with ARUA in an exercise that would help, where WUN would help provide supervision for PhD students in a major MasterCard-funded initiative that ARUA was leading. That didn't quite work out in the way that everyone intended. MasterCard changed the way it approached the problem. But a new opportunity has arisen to strengthen the partnership between ARUA and WUN, and I'm delighted to ask Frans Swanepoel to come up and talk to us about it. By the way, Francis is from the University of Pretoria.
Thank you very much, Peter. Is it still good morning? Yes, good morning, good afternoon, colleagues and others. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciate that, especially as you've mentioned the background where this has stemmed from. Just in terms of the University of Pretoria, we a very young kid on the block. We only became a member of Worldwide University Network in 2021-22. After the COVID in 2022 was our first conference at Lausanne in Switzerland. The second one that we attended was in Mexico. The third one we hosted in Pretoria in South Africa last year, and this is the fourth one. During this 4-year period or 3.5-year period, since we've joined or have been admitted as members, I personally, in collaboration with colleagues at UP, facilitated and mobilized more than 20 colleagues to submit or co-submit applications for the seed funding grants, and 15 of them have been successful. If you look at the University of Pretoria currently, there's 14 that are still in continuing, one of them have been completed. So the opportunity, if one wants to participate actively, that Worldwide University Network is offering is really tremendous in terms of building global collaboration within the next generation or the next generation of academic or early career researchers. And I think this is to a very extent sort of a similar type of initiative or opportunity. It's the African Early Career Research and Development Program, which stems from last year and is currently coordinated by ARUA, the African Research University Alliance, which is an African alliance similar to the Russell Group, for example, in the UK, or the Group of 8 in Australia, of 20 research-intensive universities on the African continent. ARUA, with the support of the MasterCard Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation of New York, is launching an early career research fellowship program to strengthen research capacity across Africa. Originally, the idea or the agreement between ARUA and the MasterCard was for a large number of PhD students to be trained by ARUA member universities. Later on, this is still in conversation, but in the interim, ARUA have announced that they will make 150 scholarships for postdoctoral fellows or early career researchers available over the next 3-year period. And to amplify the impact of this initiative, we're proposing to pilot a Worldwide University Network-led supplementary initiative, which we refer to as the Worldwide University Network Research and Development Program. About the early careers researcher program that is currently been announced and will be funded by the MasterCard Foundation and Carnegie Corporation of New York, and are due to start in July this year. It's 150 early career researchers or postdoctoral fellows, which will be funded over the next 4 years, starting 1 July to June 2028. There will be cohorts of 42 early career researchers every 6 months. So the first 42 could start on a rolling basis in July this year, hosted by the 13 centers of excellence of the ARUA universities. I mentioned it's 20 research-intensive universities which ARUA has on the African continent, but there's only 13 centers of excellence which has been established at the ARUA member universities. Each center of excellence is eligible to host 4 early career researchers in the first cohort for 6 months, or similarly 4 early career researchers, 42 in total, to begin their fellowship in January 2026 for 6 months. They will be placed at the ARUA Center of Excellence, not in their home institution or home country. So any fellow or early career researcher which are to be hosted at the University of Cape Town or the University of Pretoria in South Africa, to worldwide, the university member universities in South Africa would need to come from another country on the continent. And similarly, for the University of Ghana or the Makerere University in Uganda, they will need to come from another country on the African continent where there's also a ARUA member university. They will conduct research broadly related to their current field of existing research or existing projects. But because there's no funding available to cover research expenses, running expenses for the early career research fellow, they will only be paid a stipend, necessary mobility and accommodation by the MasterCard Foundation. They are expected to slot in with existing research programs which are hosted at the Center of Excellence and or the CGR, which is the International Research System, has extended an invitation to host early career researchers at the CGR centers on the African continent to slot in with their existing research programs which they have there. And that will also provide the opportunity to be co-mentored by a CGR scientist. This early career research and development program doesn't have any formal capacity building interventions or any formal skills development interventions in it, except to be freed up from the current university and get a fellowship as a postdoctoral fellow or early career research fellow funded by MasterCard and Carnegie Corporation to spend 6 months away from their home institution to conduct research. And the deliverables that are expected is at least one academic paper published in a high-impact journal, and that should be published within 1 year after they've started the fellowship. It's 6 months, the fellowship plus then another 6 months. A policy brief to make sure or provide the opportunity to engage with policy audiences or with industry, or a blog post, and at least 2 presentations that the early career researcher must have had undertaken during the period at an international conference or a technical workshop. And there will also be mobility funds available provided by the MasterCard Foundation for those 2 international, or 1 international conference. The other one would be a technical workshop hosted by a member university or whoever participate in co-mentoring the early career researchers. Just very briefly on the CGR, which I mentioned, have extended an invitation that they will host early career researchers under auspices of this program at their centers. The broad mission of the CGR is to transform food, land, and water systems amidst the climate crisis which we're currently experiencing. They have 15 centers around the globe with more than 10,000 scientists working. Main focus, as you can see on the map there, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. 2 of their centers on the African continent are in West Africa, the one in Nigeria, for example, the Institute for Tropical Agriculture, and 2 of the centers are based in Nairobi, World Agroforestry, and the other one, the International Livestock Research Institute. They have a very strong capacity development or strengthening component and work in collaboration with many universities around the globe to fulfill the capacity strengthening component. I know, for example, they work closely with the University of Queensland in Australia and have a signed agreement with them. There might be some others that I'm not aware of at the moment. The impact areas within the CGR system is nutrition, health, and food security, poverty reduction, livelihoods, and jobs, specifically because the focus is mainly on the African continent, Latin America, Southeast Asia, with smallholder farmers, gender equality, youth and social inclusion, climate adaptation and mitigation given the reality of the climate crisis, environmental health and biodiversity. The focus areas which we, for example, at the University of Pretoria, which hosts the Center of Excellence in Sustainable Food Systems, is very much aligned to the impact areas of the CGR system, except we work in close collaboration with the University of Cape Town, Professor Jane Battersby there. She is from a humanities perspective focusing on food environments and health. And she's a member of our Center of Excellence related to CORE, the cluster of research excellence, and lead a specific thematic area on food environments and health. The Worldwide University Network Researcher Development Program that we want to focus on is that specifically the early career researchers do not necessarily have the skills that they need to publish, make sure that they can publish their work in high quality or high impact journals, and many lack the skills required to communicate their work impactfully. The fact that they have a PhD doesn't necessarily equip them for that, as we all know. In addition, they will play a pivotal role in equipping 12, if we take suggested a pilot of 12 early career researchers from the MasterCard Carnegie Corporation New York program with enhanced skills, mentorship, and international exposure. In doing so, Worldwide University Network will position itself as a leader in building equitable global research partnerships and also building the next generation of African research leaders. The purpose of this supplementary program is to complement the opportunity that are being provided to the early career researchers in the program by offering training that will advance the goals of the program, but are not offered as part of the 6-month program, and to leverage the cohorts in the program to create new research opportunities for worldwide member universities who are keen or interested to participate in the program. The capacity strengthening interventions that we suggest, and that is built on experience of an earlier similar program at postdoctoral level, which was called the Food Systems Research Network for Africa. It was funded between the partnership of AROA with UKRI Global Challenges Research Fund as one of their research excellence programs. And under that program, 20 early career researchers at postdoctoral level were selected from 10 universities across the African continent and treated in a very similar way as a cohort. And from that, 24 years later, 29 publications have been published, 2 special editions, one in sustainability, one in frontiers of food, and a special edition on policy papers that were published have also been produced. The systems thinking and methodology is the introductory part. We strongly believe and have learned from the experience that once students finish their PhDs, they don't necessarily have a good understanding of systems thinking, systems methodology, where you put problems first, wicked problems like the climate crisis, of how to address food security or food insecurity, or any systems approach, so problems first and discipline second. So the first 10 days or 10-day capacity intervention will focus on systems thinking, systems methodology, and really how to implement transdisciplinary research. That will also be supported by a 2-day climate food dialogue. And the second week will focus on open source systems analysis software and how to use that, of how to do modeling within dynamic systems. The effective research communication, which I have highlighted, which is also critically important in terms of the skills areas that early career researchers need to advance, is how to communicate with all policy audiences and how to prepare and delivering a high impact research presentation. So in that context, we envisage to provide a week-long policy training that we do in collaboration with VANERPAN. It's the Food and Natural Resources Policy Analysis Network, which is headquartered in Pretoria, but with 28 nodes across the African continent. And then the final one, which we have identified, and there's also plenty of evidence across the globe that it really works well as a right shop for early career researchers. During the 6-month period, they conduct research, they start working on a publication, they go away and work on it for 2 or 3 months, one bring them back for a 5-day right shop. And in that right shop, the time is dedicated and committed to preparing an academic peer-reviewed publication through structured facilitation along with writing mentorship, but as a cohort with robust mentoring in a transdisciplinary way. And we have found that really works best if it's in a cohort model. That's why we suggest 12. One can go slightly bigger, but usually if you have a cohort of 12 PhD students or 12 early career researchers, one can really work with them with 4 or 5 different disciplinary oriented transdisciplinary researchers who have experience and are dedicated in academic peer-reviewed writing. This is just a broad proposal or a broad time frame. As I indicated, it will kick off in July this year. The applications has just been opened by ARWA 2 weeks ago on a rolling basis to close by the end of May to start the 1st of July. That will be the first cohort, July to December, but on a rolling basis. We suggest that if we broadly agree and perhaps consider favorably to get involved in this as a pilot initiative, that we probably start our preparatory phase during the next couple of months, 2025. The cohort starts the program perhaps in January next year for a 6-month period, as you can see from January to the end of June. But then that this supplementary program where the Worldwide University Network member universities of the North become involved, overlap from April to September next year. So in April, the Worldwide University Network Research and Development Program starts with the 10-day intervention on policy training and also a climate food policy dialogue where we focus on systems thinking and systems methodologies. A couple of months later, towards the end of the official period of the cohort until the end of June, have a 10-day or 2-week session on impactful communication, including policy training, including scientific writing and scientific communication. They go away after the 6 months back to their home institutions and come back in September or October or November for a concluding session of a write shop where they will come with their publications in different phases or different stages of advancement, and then through a robust co-supervision of a transdisciplinary group, we focus on finalizing the publications during that week-long intervention. Obviously, one of the most important things probably will be what is in it for Worldwide University Network. From the conversations that I had the privilege to listen to over the last couple of days and today, I think it's very clear that there's a lot of people in the room that are really dedicated and interested to have the opportunity to serve as trainers or facilitators in the program, structured capacity development interventions, and or get the opportunity to engage with African young scholars. Mentorship opportunities, again, they will be able to engage as informal or formal mentors throughout the program and also serve or would be able to participate in the write shop, for example. Also, together with the write shop, towards the end, one could either have a policy dialogue and the write shop together, and in the middle intervention, only focus on the policy training and the science communication, or one could have the policy engagement or policy dialogue at that point already. Research and other exchanges where relevant to an early career research program. Worldwide University Network Northern members would be able to facilitate short-term visits for the early career researchers on specialized methodology training, for example, or access to unique research facilities or equipment that they might not have access to at the member universities on the African continent. But additionally, I think a very excellent opportunity is really the opportunity for research visits and exchange also within the network of the CGR system. The one CGR consists, as I mentioned, of the 15 CGR centers spread across the globe, with the 4 on the African continent. And we foresee that many of these students, these early career researchers, will be hosted for their research to conduct their research at CGR centers. Specifically, because many of the African universities doesn't necessarily have running expenses available to accommodate them to slot in immediately. Some has, some doesn't. But there we have this opportunity and agreement with the CGR system that they can go and work immediately, will be accommodated at the CGR centers to conduct their research, but then mentored or co-supervised by a northern mentor from Worldwide University Network members, one from the African Center of Excellence where they are, and one from a CGR center, which immediately bring 3 different people from 3 different disciplinary areas together to focus on a real world problem related to the broad field of food, climate, water systems on the African continent. The international networking, of course, the North-South and intra-African networking through climate food dialogue, and the multi and inter and transdisciplinary approach which is required in terms of food security, climate resilience, water systems on the African continent, the different training events that will be offered, and the policy dialogue. These platforms will introduce Worldwide University Network researchers to a pipeline of emerging scholars and opening collaboration pathways for the future. In short, I think this is really, in my humble opinion, an excellent opportunity for committed Worldwide University Network members from the Global North to have the opportunity to engage with the brightest young minds on the African continent. And to a large extent, I believe that given our youth dividend on the African continent, this is really an opportunity with long-term sustainability to start engaging now already with the brightest young minds on the African continent. Collaborative research development, the program will provide a strategic forum to build joint research projects and funding proposals on urgent global challenges, some of them which will be stemming directly from this, but obviously because of the multi, inter and transdisciplinary nature of the work that we will focus on, there will be other spin-offs or other potential opportunities, especially in the context of the broader CGR and the broader involvement with the 4 African members of Worldwide University Network, being the University of Cape Town, University of Pretoria, University of Ghana, and Makerere University in Uganda. And obviously, enhanced visibility underscores the Worldwide University Member Network commitment to equitable global partnerships. And I think if this pilot succeeds, which I am very optimistic about, I'm a born optimist, they say, I've never really been involved in programs or projects that has not been executed successfully. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but eventually we see it through. And this is one of those kind of opportunities. And I think that will also lead to improved or increased sustainability. The MasterCard Foundation, the Carnegie Corporation of New York, as I've mentioned, has decided to put funding into this 150 early career researchers for over the next 2-3 years. We're speaking of the potential of a smaller pilot year in collaboration with the African continent and the 4 African research university members of Worldwide University Network as the beneficiaries to identify the early career researchers, but then to work in collaboration with this network in terms of the pilot, achieve success, and then that will provide the basis for scaling out. In conclusion, I had various conversations with the ARUA leadership, and the last one was last week. I have also gave feedback to Peter and Mike in that context, and to my Vice Chancellor, Professor Peterson and Professor Maharaj from the University of Pretoria, that MasterCard and ARUA are very keen to support this initiative. And if it's successful, ARUA have explicitly stated that they would like to see it as a much broader and bigger innovative approach to provide this sort of capacity development interventions to prepare students or the early career researchers for multi-inter-transdisciplinarity, to provide the opportunity of engaging with policy stakeholders, policy dialogues, but also to successfully learn how to publish in high-impact journals throughout the whole program of the 150, potentially to be repeated after the first 3-4 years. And not only the specific focus, but obviously this pilot is for us. Depending on the outcome there, I think there's really opportunities for sustainability and bigger opportunities to mobilize funding through direct engagement of Worldwide University Network with the global philanthropy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frans. We've time for questions about this. Martin, please.
Thank you, Frans. I think that's a great idea, great project. Just for the sake of clarity, the research focus is on this, if I trivialize it, the climate food environment.
Yeah.
So will WUN universities that are not very active in that research area be able to offer places or participate in this exchange, for example, if they have experience in capacity building, creative writing, and other things? So, because I think, if it's a WUN initiative, it should be accessible for all universities. So I just want to make sure that's the case.
Without a doubt, certainly we want to more or less focus in the context of climate, food, and health. This is where Makerere University has strength. This is where the University of Ghana has strength in terms of the existing centers of excellence. The University of Cape Town has 2 centers of excellence, the one in poverty and inequality, the other one in climate and development, University of Pretoria in sustainable food systems. And I mean, being a little bit selfish, because University of Pretoria has sustainable food systems, we really need to learn how to position the food system to become a solution to the climate crisis. So if we speak about climate, it's migration of people, it's global One Health, it's climate and health, it's much broader. So it's really a multi-transdisciplinary approach which is required. And doesn't matter what your academic discipline is, if you need to build capacity and strengthen capacity, whether you come from an education perspective, if you have experience in systems thinking or systems methodologies, or how to engage with policy dialogues, policy hubs, policy schools, academic and scientific writing, this is the people that we really need. And we on the African continent doesn't have adequate supervisory capacity. Just very briefly, I know I'm speaking too much, but I just want to mention, in South Africa, we produce 50 PhDs per million of the population annually. The rest of the world, where there's a vibrant science and technology system, they produce between 250 and 400 PhDs per million of the population. I know last year, Australia were producing 250 or 260 PhDs per million of the population annually. South Africa, only 50. And we're leading the pack on the African continent. In many other African universities, it's much lower. So we don't have the supervisory capacity to train these PhD students to become competitive in the global knowledge economy. The only way that we can do it is to innovatively collaborate with the global north in terms of supervisory and mentoring capacity for doctoral, postdoctoral, early career researchers.
Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. I think it's a very promising initiative. Did I understand you correctly that if the pilots or the whole initiative is successful, that then the sponsors would also consider expanding to other regions in the world beyond Africa? And if so, that could also be quite interesting considering the discussion we had yesterday with our Asian network, because this is the kind of substance I would like to see then that would really make the alliances work together on the basis of content. But did I understood you correctly that that could be a future?
I don't know about other parts of the world. The current sponsor is the Carnegie Corporation of New York and MasterCard Foundation. MasterCard Foundation revised their investment strategy 2 years ago and decided to focus only on indigenous Canada and on the African continent. Over the next 10 years, the MasterCard Foundation, they've moved their head office or part of their head office to Kigali in Rwanda. They have set up an office there with a strong focus on the future of the youth. Education, training, job creation, agriculture, everything in that domain. And they've appointed additional staff to work in that domain. And then they also focus on indigenous people in Canada. A small percentage of their investment go to other areas. But obviously, they're one of the top 3, the biggest 3 philanthropic foundations in the world. Carnegie Corporation of New York always had a very strong engagement on the African continent for many years. in a project or program that they called Libraries and Higher Education for Africa. And it's under Libraries and Higher Education for Africa that they have had an agreement with ARUA since its inception. They have funded a number of data studies for ARUA across the continent, and it's in that specific regard. So what I meant when I said more broadly, not only the pilot, or not only these 12 or 15 early career researchers, but for all 150 early career researchers that are being funded on the African continent over the next 3 to 4 years, that they will make funds available via ARUA to whoever gets involved to provide this additional capacity development interventions.
On your point, Rihanna, it's probably important to distinguish the particulars of this pilot, which clearly would only be funded, or extensions of it would be funded by MasterCard and Carnegie Corporation only in Africa, to the development of a workable model that is a model that could be transplanted elsewhere. And everything that Frans has told me about it suggests that if we get it right, the framework is broadly applicable. Yeah. Evelyn.
Thank you, and thank you for an inspirational presentation. It fits very much with the Africa Charter on research partnerships that that we've all been discussing over the past few years, and that really came out of the WUN leadership that started this conversation some time ago. So I have a very boring Vice Chancellor question, which is, who's paying for it? And how will these various bits of funding and writing workshops, etc., be costed? And will they take place in person or virtually so that mentorship can be done at a distance?
The intention for this one is it should be in person. We had a similar initiative, which I mentioned, FSNet Africa, the Food Systems Research Network for Africa. The Food Systems Research Network for Africa, which was funded by UKRI Global Challenges Research Fund. And the idea when we started with that was obviously to do in person, but it was just before COVID came. So we had to move over to a virtual model, and eventually in conclusion, we had the opportunity to bring them together. I'm convinced virtual can help and can certainly assist to a very great extent. But for the initial induction or orientation, systems thinking of a cohort of students working in this broad domain from different disciplinary backgrounds, PhD in agricultural economics, agrometeorology, animal science, plant pathology, whatever you want to call it, it's much more productive to bring them together for a 10-day period. Similarly, for the policy training and especially the policy dialogue, because we want to identify as part of the research that they are going to execute or conduct at either the ARUA member university, or they might spend a stint at the Northern University or at a CGR center, identify from the beginning of the project that they will be the potential stakeholders along the value chain, and bring them together in a policy dialogue to prepare the policy brief that need to be produced. And similarly, to provide the opportunity and enable a group of experts from different disciplinary areas, but a deep understanding of transdisciplinarity, to engage in a robust supervision of a cohort of students is difficult to do virtually. So once we have a 10-day workshop, a 10-day workshop, a 5-day workshop, we might follow up virtually to finalize some of it and get it publication ready. But I think for the more or less 25 days or a month over the whole period, we will need to bring them together in person. Yes.
And there is some cost to WUN, but in the context of the opportunity, from what I've discussed provisionally, it seems modest. So it's up to the board, of course, to decide what's modest, but we wouldn't be having Frans here to talk about this if we didn't think it was workable.
The stipend, though, as I've mentioned, of $2,000 per month, which I think is a very good stipend for an early career researcher or postdoc, will be funded by MasterCard Foundation per month for the period, the full duration, doesn't matter where they are. They will also make additional funds available for accommodation, and they will make additional funds available for air travel to the Arua member university and to the station if they are going to conduct research at the CGR Research Center, for example. So all of that will be covered, and there will be no running expenses to conduct the research because of that arrangement. But obviously, to bring them together will have a cost implication.
Thank you very much for the information. It's definitely a very interesting project. And I think it is more interesting than what was previously thought about. My question is just like a practical one. You talked about 13 centers in Africa. So I would like to know where are those centers located? Will our participation be limited to the universities that belong to WN or to the 13 centers wherever they are located?
Yeah, there's 13 Arua Centers of Excellence on the continent. The focus will be on the 4 centers who are members of Arua and members of Worldwide University Network. And that is the University of Cape Town, the University of Pretoria, the University of Ghana, and Makerere University in Uganda. But it will not be limited to those only, because some of those early career researchers might be from other Arua member universities, like the University of Stellenbosch, for example, which all works in energy and food, like another university who have a center of excellence in water, land, water, food systems. So the other centers are there's 2 or 3 of them in Nigeria, there's in Ghana, there's in Makerere, there's at the University of Nairobi. In South Africa, there's 5. I cannot think so far quickly now, but they spread around, I think, 10 African countries. Sunil, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Frans. This brings the session to an end.
you.